She said it in front of everyone. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, still holding the cup of tea I had made for myself when I arrived. Her voice had that soft edge she used when she wanted to sound reasonable in front of others. Stay quiet. Or leave. Like I was a guest who had overstayed, not her mother. Not the woman who had held her feverish head when she was 5 and breathing too fast. Not the woman who used to hum in the hallway outside her room until she fell asleep, because she said it helped. I'm Caroline Bell, 69, and that was the moment I knew I didn't live in my daughter's house. I was just passing through. Subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Thanks. I kept my mouth closed. I nodded gently, as if she were right. The others didn't meet my eyes. Her husband turned toward the baby monitor like it was suddenly more interesting. Her sister-in-law cleared her throat and asked about the casserole in the oven. Took a sip of tea, even though it had gone cold. Tasted like cinnamon and chalk. I said I was tired. I asked if I could go lie down. She pointed toward the guest room, my room, until the end of the month. I went, I closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and I didn't cry, because she wasn't angry. She wasn't shouting. She said it like a rule, a condition of staying. And that was worse. It meant she'd practiced it, rehearsed it with someone, maybe her husband, maybe in her head, maybe in therapy. It wasn't about the argument, though I could still feel it in my chest, heavy like a stone under skin. It was about what it revealed, that there had always been a limit, and I'd crossed it just by speaking. Just by existing in her home with a past and a voice and a mother's memory that didn't match hers. I wasn't allowed to exist unless I was silent. I met her father when I was 19, married by 22, had her by 23. I remember the way she'd reach for my thumb with her whole hand. The way she smelled of milk and heat and sleep. I remember every birthday cake I ever made for her, even the one that collapsed in the middle, and she said it looked like a volcano and laughed until she hiccuped. I remember the fights too. Of course I do. The year she turned 15 and said she hated me. The year I asked if she was using again. It's the time she packed a bag and left for 3 nights and wouldn't say where she'd been. But I also remember the morning she called me crying from college. The way she whispered Mom into the phone like she was still little. I remember driving for hours in the dark wearing my coat over my pajamas. I remember holding her like I used to. She'll let me. I never thought we were perfect. Only thought we were real. Messy, loving. When her father died, I gave her the house. Not right away. I stayed a few more years. But when I moved into the small apartment near the water, I signed over the deed. She had a baby on the way. Wanted her to have roots. Safety. I told myself I was planting something. For her. For them. At first, she was grateful. Called me every morning. Sent pictures. Asked for recipes. And then, like mist clearing, the shape of her life changed. My calls were answered with texts. Then not answered at all. When I came over, I knocked instead of walking in. I was asked to bring dessert instead of the main dish. I was asked to leave before bedtime routines, then before dinner, then before I opened my mouth. I didn't see it all at once. That's how it works. You explain it away. She's tired. The baby, her work, her husband. You don't want to admit you're becoming too much, or worse, not enough. But I saw the mail. It was a Friday. The sun was bright, sharp, and I was alone in the kitchen folding laundry while she was out. Large white envelope on the counter. Her name and mine underneath. Legal stationery. I wasn't snooping. I only looked because it was addressed to both of us. But only her name was written in ink. Mine was printed faintly, already fading. It was a revision of the deed. The house was being refinanced. My name was being removed from the title entirely. It wasn't a mistake. It was carefully done. The paperwork was prepared. It's all it needed. Was my signature? There was a note on top in her handwriting. Thought you'd be okay with this? Makes things easier. I didn't touch anything. I folded the towels and went to lie down. My hands were cold, but I didn't cry that night. I made a copy, quietly, slipped the envelope back where it had been, and I began my list. It started with passwords, then account numbers, safety deposit keys, the will. My will. I hadn't changed it in years. Everything had gone to her. But now I wrote a new version, not out of revenge, but clarity. I left the house where it belonged under my name. I added a clause for my granddaughter one day, when she was old enough, if she came to find me. I left nothing else to my daughter, except one letter. I placed it in the envelope with the revised will. The letter was short. 2 lines, really. You asked me to stay quiet, so I will. But silence, this time, comes with consequence. I signed it, sealed it, and made sure my lawyer knew what to do if anything happened to me. I packed my suitcase the next morning. Coats, a bag of notebooks, my pills, my toothbrush. I left the extra key on the kitchen hook and slipped away before the baby woke up. No one noticed. I checked into a roadside inn first. Not far, just far enough. Then I kept driving. She texted at noon, "Where are you?" Later, "Are you okay?" Then a call, then another. I didn't answer. Then silence. It lasted 3 days, until the voicemail. Long, tired. Her voice sounded brittle. She said she didn't mean to hurt me. Said it had just felt like the right thing. Said she never thought I'd actually go. Said it like I'd disappeared, like I hadn't been fading in her home for months. I didn't call back. I opened a window and listened to the quiet. Kata took out the deed, ran my thumb over the stamp, folded it again, placed it back in my bag. I rented a small place, the kind with creaking stairs and too many light switches for the number of rooms. The kitchen smelled like old soap. The bedroom faced a tree. I liked it. The woman who ran the post office had kind eyes. Her son fixed my radio. The bakery, 2 doors down, kept a chair near the heater for older folks who wanted to sit. I brought them a pie once. They never let me pay full price again. I started painting again. Just watercolors, nothing fancy. But my hands remembered. I bought myself yellow shoes. Kai? I watched bad TV with the volume too high. I walked every morning, even when it rained. One afternoon, a girl from the building upstairs knocked. Said her mom was working late. Asked if I could help with homework. I said yes. Her name was Lily. She reminded me of something I thought I'd lost. Then the letter came. My daughter. 4 pages, handwritten. Apologies, regrets. Her version of events. The phrase I never meant to, again and again. I read it twice. I folded it and placed it in the drawer. I didn't write back. She came. Once. Months later, knocked on the door. I watched from behind the curtain. She waited 10 minutes. Then left something on the step. It was a photo of us, when she was little. And a note. I miss you. I was wrong, please. I didn't open the door. I picked up the photo. I placed it face down in the same drawer as her letter. Not to be cruel, but because some doors must stay closed, for peace to last. I take walks now without checking my phone. Keep the curtains open. I play records too loud. I tell Lily she's smart and strong and enough. I tell her even when she rolls her eyes. I don't ask to be anyone's mother anymore. I just ask to be mine. And this time, I decide who gets to call me anything else. Before she said it. Before the house became hers in all the ways that matter and none of the ways that count, I believed we were healing. Maybe not from everything, but from enough. She had grown up, had a child of her own. I thought that kind of love would soften the parts of her that turned away from mine. I wasn't naive. I knew we had bruises, hers and mine, some made by me, some by her father, some just by life. But there had been so many good days too. Days where she laughed into my neck, where she called me just to hear my voice, where she asked me if she was doing this motherhood thing right. I told her she was. Every time, that first year after her daughter was born, I felt needed again. She'd hand me the baby and disappear into the shower like she had waited all day just to breathe. Sometimes she'd nap and let me hum lullabies while I rocked the child she once was. There were evenings when we sat on the back porch, her with a cup of wine, me with tea, and she would tell me about things she never used to share. Worries about her marriage, her body, her fear that she wasn't enough. I listened. I always listened. And when she cried, I didn't say much. Just held her hand the way my mother used to hold mine when words would only make it worse. I let her rest. I let her be tired. I cooked, cleaned, folded clothes that weren't mine, fed a family I didn't make but still felt tethered to. I told myself this is what love looks like when it changes shape. Not loud, not bright. It's there. I didn't realize I had become background. It's a fixture in the house, like the kitchen light that stays on but no one sees. The more I did, the less. I was not resented, just absorbed. She stopped asking how I was. She stopped remembering the things I used to like. I mentioned a book once, and she blinked like I'd spoken in a different language. I said I might go see an old friend, and she asked if I could wait until after the baby's doctor appointment. It was always some reason, some plan, some need that pushed mine aside, and I let it happen quietly. That's the thing they don't tell you about aging. Sometimes it isn't your body that goes first. It's your place in the room. The first real crack came on my birthday. She forgot. It wasn't that I expected a party or cake. I hadn't had those in years. But a card, a simple call, something to say she remembered the day she came into the world was also the day I broke to make space for her. I waited all day. I even dressed in a nicer sweater, just in case she suggested dinner. When the baby went down for her nap, I thought, maybe now. But instead, she turned on the TV, curled up on the couch with her phone and said, "Can you bring me that blanket?" I brought it, sat on the far end. I didn't say a word. I didn't want her to be embarrassed. I didn't want to force the love. I just watched the flicker of the screen across her face and wondered how we'd gotten so far from when she used to draw me cards with stick figures and hearts. Later that week, I bought myself a small lemon tart from the bakery down the street, wrote my name on the box with a pen, and ate it in the car. No candles, no song, just me. Just the soft sweetness of something small that I chose. That should have been the moment I knew. But I didn't. Not fully. Not yet. There was still a part of me, stubborn, loyal, hopeful, that believed in the turning tide, that she would come back, she would remember, that I still lived inside her in the way she would always live inside me. After all, hadn't I taken her in after everything? Her father left. Slowly, then suddenly. Long absences, then silence. When she was 17, he moved 3 states over with a woman named Denise. I didn't tell her until after graduation. I let her believe he was still around, just busy, just tired. When the truth came out, she said I should have told her sooner. Then she didn't speak to me for a month. Still, when she called and asked if she could come back home, I said yes. No questions, no conditions, just yes. She came with a duffel bag and a bruise on her arm she didn't want to explain. I gave her the bigger room, cooked her favorite meals, watched her pull herself back together, one late night at a time. She started over. I helped. Quietly, always quietly. Years passed like that, one small heartbreak after another. But I stayed close. I stayed steady. And when she told me she was pregnant, I was the one who held her hand during the first ultrasound. I was the one who rubbed her back through the nausea. I was the one who stayed when her husband went cold during the 3rd trimester. She said, "I couldn't do this without you." But she did, and then, one day, she didn't say anything at all. I can't pinpoint the moment I shifted from mother to burden, from ally to shadow. But I think it happens like most things, slowly, while you're looking in the other direction. I was so busy loving her that I didn't notice when she stopped loving me back in the same way. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe she still loves me somewhere deep. But it's the kind of love that has boundaries now. Conditions, rules, stay quiet. Or leave. It wasn't the first time she'd said something like that. Not exactly. But it was the first time she said it in front of others. Without shame, without pause. with the ease of someone who has already decided that your presence is optional. I wonder now if that's what she believes, that my presence in her life is a kindness, not a bond. Something she extends when convenient, something she can take back. But I am not a favor. I am her mother, and I will not stay quiet anymore. The papers were printed in soft gray ink, not black, like they didn't want to make it too harsh. Like the betrayal might sting less if the text looked gentle. The legal language folded in on itself, clause after clause, until the meaning came out the other side, stripped of feeling but heavy with intent. I read them slowly, twice. Then a third time, just to be sure. My name was on the second page. Not as owner, not even as co-owner. It was a ghost line. A name being lifted. It's removed for efficiency, for simplification, for future security. That's what the clause said. Remember the phrase exactly, to ensure future clarity of ownership and estate planning. I stood there at the kitchen counter, the morning light bending through the glass like it always did. There were still crumbs from her daughter's toast, still the faint smell of lavender dish soap. But none of it felt like it belonged to me. Not anymore. I didn't take a photo. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her when she came back from her walk. She breezed in, cheeks pink from the cold, jacket half sipped, and said something about a sale at the pharmacy. I nodded. I made us both tea. I asked if she wanted lemon. Said no, just honey. She didn't notice that my hands were shaking when I placed the mug in front of her. She was already back to her phone, scrolling with one hand, stirring with the other. I left the papers exactly where I'd found them. Her intention was clear. She'd leave them out for me to see, quietly, like a suggestion. Like a test of whether I would object. A mother with boundaries, she once said. A mother who understood that letting go was part of love. But I had let go, over and over. I let go of the house when I signed the first deed over years ago. I let go of the master bedroom, of my keepsakes, of my garden. I let go of dinners where I got to pick the meal, of holidays where my name was still on the card, of the right to speak plainly, cry loudly. Remember out loud, I had let go so many times I wasn't sure what. I had left, but I knew this. I would not let go of my name. It was a strange thing to feel so calm. I had expected rage or grief. But what arrived was a quiet, crystalline clarity. I would not fight her. I would not plead. I would not even correct her version of events, which would surely come later. The one where I was ungrateful, erratic, difficult. Instead, I started writing at night while they slept. I pulled out an old yellow notebook I had tucked between winter sweaters. I made lists, bank accounts, passwords, insurance policies, safety deposit boxes, a second set of keys. I wrote everything down in tight, steady handwriting. I didn't rush. I didn't whisper. The silence in that house was already so loud, it barely noticed me adding to it. I made copies of the papers, scanned them, emailed them to myself under a name only I would recognize. I wrote a new will. It was the hardest thing I've done. Not for the legality of it, but for what it meant. Writing a will feels like leaving a letter to the world explaining who mattered and why, who tried, who failed, who stayed, who left. My old will had her name on every line. The new one did not. Instead, I left the house to myself. I had never transferred the deed properly. I had thought about it years ago, but the paperwork was never finalized. There were still clauses that required my signature to release it fully, she had assumed. Or she had hoped I would simply forget, but I hadn't. I made the adjustments quietly. Legally, my lawyer didn't ask questions. I paid in full. I even smiled at the receptionist on my way out. On the walk back to the car, I passed a mother and daughter. The little girl was no more than 6, holding a red mitten in each hand, trying to match them to her boots. Her mother bent down, whispered something, kissed her forehead. I looked away. That night I wrote the letter. It wasn't angry. It wasn't long. It was just a few sentences. written in the same calm tone I would use if I were telling her the car's oil needed changing, or that the milk had gone bad. You asked me to be quiet, so I will, but I won't disappear. My name stays. Stays, the story of this house and of me will not end in silence. I signed it, folded it once, placed it in the envelope with the will. I went to the safe and tucked the envelope beside the deed under the insurance documents. I turned the dial slowly, gently, like I was closing something more than a door. Then I packed. I didn't take everything. It's just what mattered. My clothes, my pills. The photo of her as a toddler holding a dandelion. A tiny china bird my mother gave me when I turned 16, my notebooks. A scarf I always loved but rarely wore. I didn't leave a note. I left before sunrise. The hallway creaked like it always did. The floorboard near her bedroom still gave a faint groan, but no one stirred. I opened the front door. The cold air rushed in like a reminder. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me with both hands, got in. The driveway, frost-etched silver lines across the windshield. I scraped it away in silence. Didn't check the windows upstairs. I didn't look back. I drove to a small inn 2 towns over, paid in cash. The room was simple. A bed, a window, a desk. Pale curtains. An old radiator that clanked to life like it had been waiting. I sat on the bed, took off my shoes, pulled the scarf from my bag, and placed it over the lamp. Warm light. Then I lay back. The silence felt different now. Not absence, but space. She would find the empty closet, the key left on its hook, the missing notebooks. Maybe not right away. She was always slow to notice what wasn't in front of her dot, and eventually she would find the safe, open the envelope, read the will, and understand that I hadn't yelled. I hadn't begged. I had written myself back into the story without permission, without apology. I slept for 13 hours the first night. The motel mattress was thin, but I didn't mind. It held me. The blankets smelled faintly of detergent and dust. The radiator hummed like an old friend remembering a tune. I didn't dream. I didn't check the time. I let my bones sink into the stillness and didn't ask them to do anything more. In the morning, I sat by the window with a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt beans and plastic stir sticks. Still, I drank every drop. I watched the street below, 2 boys skateboarding on cracked pavement, a woman walking her dog in a pink coat too bright for the sky. The air looked sharp, like it might split open if you breathed too deeply. I breathed. Anyway, I didn't cry. I thought I might. I had packed tissues, braced for grief to hit once I crossed that line between her house and the world beyond it. But grief didn't come. Not yet. What came was relief. A slow exhale I hadn't realized. I'd been holding for years. I made a list in my notebook that morning. A new one. Find a place to live, change phone number by new toothbrush, call lawyer to confirm document filing. Do not respond to Harry, underline the last one twice. That was the quiet rule I set for myself. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't explain. That part of me, the one always ready to explain, had finally gone still. It took decades to silence that voice. The one that said, maybe she doesn't mean it. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe if you just try harder. I had tried. I tried when she forgot my birthday. When she brushed past my offers to help. When she said, we needed to set healthy boundaries and never once asked what mine were. I tried when she left me off the family holiday card. When she put the baby's car seat in my old spot in the car and didn't seem to notice. I told myself that was love too. That love could shrink, could make space, could survive without being seen. But love without regard is not love. It's usage. The motel clerk's name was Monica. She was younger than my daughter, had a mole near her lip and wore her hair in a bun that loosened more each day. I asked if I could stay the week. She said sure, no problem, and slid me a new key card. With a soft smile, people are kind when you vanish, especially when you're older. They assume things, illness, loss, bad husbands. They don't ask questions. They let you be invisible, and for once, that felt like a gift, not punishment. I walked to the corner store and bought a prepaid phone. I left the old one powered off in the bottom of my bag, wrapped in a scarf I no longer wore. It had started, buzzing halfway through the night. I didn't look. I didn't answer. She would notice by now. She would have gone to the safe, found the will, found the letter. I imagined her face as she read it. Not out of vengeance, I wasn't looking for satisfaction, just truth. For once, I had spent so long living around her version of me. The one where I was too sensitive, too tired, too much. I wanted her to see that I had a spine, after all, that I knew how to write my name, that I still owned it. The lawyer called on the motel landline, confirmed everything was filed. I thanked him. He paused a moment before hanging up. "You did the right thing, Mrs. Bell." I didn't reply. Right and wrong weren't the point anymore. Peace was. That afternoon, I sat at the desk and started sketching. Nothing serious. Just pencil to paper, lines, and shapes. I drew the curtains, the chipped lamp, my own hand. I hadn't drawn in years. My fingers trembled at first, but the muscle remembered more than I thought. I filled 5 pages. Later, I tore one out, the one of my hand. I folded it gently and slipped it under the edge of the mirror. It's not proof of anything, but it was the first thing I made just for me. On the 4th day, she called the motel. I don't know how she found it. Maybe checked bank statements. Maybe asked around. I didn't pick up. Monica left a note under my door. "Your daughter's looking. For you, sounds upset. Wants to talk." I stared at the paper for a long time. Not because I didn't expect it, but because of what she didn't say. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I miss you." Not, "I was wrong." Just wants to talk. I didn't call back. Instead, I wrote another list. Find a small place with a kitchen window. Get art supplies mail. Letter to Lily, my sister's granddaughter. She had written once last year. Tell Monica thank you. Don't feel guilty. Underlined that last one too. That night I walked 3 blocks to a diner, sat at the counter, ordered grilled cheese and tomato soup. The waitress called me ma'am. I almost corrected her, almost said I used to be mom. But I didn't. I dipped the sandwich into the soup and ate slowly. It was the first meal I'd eaten warm in weeks. I paid in cash, left a tip, walked back under the streetlights like someone who had nothing to hide. Inside the motel, I opened the suitcase. Took out the envelope with the photo of my daughter, the one from when she was small. Her smile wide, cheeks flushed. Stay was holding a pinnacone. I used to think that photo meant hope. Now it just meant time had passed. I didn't tear it up. I didn't burn it. I placed it face down in the drawer. Let her image rest for now. I pulled out my sketchbook again. Drew the diner, the soup bowl, a pine cone dot, and on the final page I drew a key dot, not to her house, to my own. One I hadn't found yet, but would. The door would be small, the kind that opens inward. And this time only I would have the lock. I left the motel just after sunrise. Monica hugged me when I turned in the key. It surprised us both. She stepped back quickly, apologizing under her breath, saying something about how she didn't usually do that. I told her it was all right. I meant it. It had been a long time since someone hugged me without needing something in return. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't know myself. I just drove a 2-lane road, mostly empty. The sky was pale and flat like a tablecloth no one had the energy to smooth. I passed empty gas stations, barns with roofs like broken backs, stretch of field with geese moving through the frost like ghosts. I played music low on the radio, old songs I half remembered. A woman's voice singing about rivers and mistakes. I didn't cry, didn't talk to myself, just kept moving. By noon, I reached a town I'd never heard of. It had a post office, a thrift store, a small diner with a hand-painted sign that said, "Eggs all day. Pies until they're gone." I parked. I stepped out of the car and just stood there, feeling the cold bite through my sleeves. Then I walked, slowly down 1 block, then another. I passed a shop window with a carved wooden spoon hanging in it, and I stopped. It was nothing special. Scratched, too long, probably useless for real cooking. But it made me smile. Something about it felt honest. I found the rental sign on the last house before the street curved into woods. A small place. One story. Pale yellow paint, half chipped. The porch sagged slightly, like it was tired of being upright. There was a paper sign. In the window, handwritten, with a phone number. I called. The landlord was a woman named Hattie. Casa. She answered on the second ring, said the place had been empty since her brother passed, and she just wanted someone quiet. Someone who'd keep the pipes from freezing. I said I could be that someone. I moved. 2 days later, there was no furniture except an old rocking chair and a table with one leg shorter than the rest. The bedroom was small, the walls bare. But the kitchen had a window. And in the morning, light fell in soft and diagonal, warming the floorboards even before the heat kicked in. I bought a second-hand mattress, kettle, a radio with 2 working stations. I pinned my sketches up along the hallway wall with tape. It made the place look lived in. It made it mine. No one knew I was there, not my daughter, not her husband, not even the lawyer. It felt strange to disappear in the age of always being seen. But I'd made the right arrangements, changed what needed changing. Left behind only what I chose. I started each morning with tea, then a walk. I liked the quiet. I liked not having to earn a space at the table. I liked being nobody to everyone I passed. Most people smiled. Some waved. One man tipped his cap, though I doubt he knew why. I found the library on the second Friday. It was inside what used to be a church. Stained glass windows above the fiction section. A sagging floor near the biographies. The librarian was a young man with a long braid down his back. His name tag said River. He said it gently, like it wasn't meant to be repeated. He didn't ask for ID. Just handed me a library card and said, "Pick anything. It's yours for now." I chose 3 books, one about map making, one about birds, and one novel I remembered loving in college but couldn't recall the ending of. I read the map making book first. Not because I cared about geography, but because it felt symbolic. A woman making sense of lines, drawing herself back into the world. In the afternoons, I painted. Nothing grand, just small scenes. The cracked edge of the porch. The way the kitchen tile caught the sun. A pie I'd eaten at the diner. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I wasn't trying to prove I still had value. I was just trying to see the world again. On my terms. By the end of the 3rd week, I had learned most of the town's rhythms. The cashier at the grocery store hummed through every transaction. The boy who delivered firewood always dropped one log by mistake and never picked it up. The radio played the same weather forecast 4 times a day. Even when it was wrong, I began to sleep without waking. I began to forget the dates, but I didn't forget the letter. I had written it months ago. Not for her, but for her daughter. My granddaughter. She was only 5 now. Too young to read it. Too young to know anything except that I wasn't in the house anymore. I didn't include anger. I didn't mention the papers, or the silence, or the way her mother had folded me out of the picture like I was just another napkin at the table. I only wrote what I wanted the child to know, that I had loved her from the start, that I remembered her laugh, that I hoped, one day, she would remember mine. I sealed it and placed it in the drawer beside the kettle. It wasn't meant to be mailed. Not yet. But it existed, and some days that was enough. I stopped checking the old phone. I unplugged it, placed it in a shoebox beneath the bed. She had called again. If she had written or shouted into the silence, I didn't want to. No, I had nothing left to say. Not because I didn't still feel something for her, but because the space she gave me was no longer a gift. It had become a wall. I would not knock again. I spent that week painting keys. Different shapes, different sizes. None of them quite real, but every one of them unlocked something in me. I pinned them above my bed, and every morning, When I woke and stretched and made my tea, I looked up and chose one. This one for silence. This one for memory. This one for peace. And this one for never going back. I didn't know what I expected when it happened. Maybe I thought she'd wait longer. Maybe I believed she wouldn't come at all. But one morning, just as I was setting down my tea, the doorbell rang. It was a sound I hadn't heard since the old house. Not in this one. It's not here, where silence had taken up residence like an old friend. It startled me. It's not the volume of it, but the implication. A knock means you might be passing through. A ring means you believe you still have the right to enter. I didn't open the door. Instead, I stepped quietly to the window and looked out from behind the thin curtain. There she was, my daughter, standing on the porch like she had the memory of it in her body, like she remembered being little, dropping her backpack and calling out for me. But this time, her hands were clenched around her phone, and she wasn't calling for anyone. She was just standing still, like the world had stopped moving until I answered. I didn't move. I watched her shift her weight, glance back at the street. She looked older than I remembered, more tired. Her coat was the one I had bought her years ago. I noticed the fraying along the sleeves. She rang again, then she knocked. Not hard, just twice, the way she used to when the baby was asleep, and she didn't want to wake the house. I closed my eyes for a moment, felt that old ache, the one that lives under the rib cage, waiting for the right sound to stretch awake. Still, I didn't open it. She stayed 10 minutes. Then slid something through the mail slot and walked away. I didn't watch her leave. When I finally picked it up, I saw her handwriting, careful, pressed hard into the paper, like she had written each letter with her whole body. Inside was a note. No salutation. No, Mom. Just, I don't know where to begin. You were gone when I woke up. The closet was empty. The keys were there. I thought you were just taking a break. I didn't know you were leaving. I've read the letter in the safe. I've read it 100 times. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the things I let happen. For the way I stopped seeing you. I don't know how to undo it. I don't know if you want to hear from me. But if you do, please, call. I miss you. It wasn't much, but it was more than I thought she was capable of. Still, I didn't call. Not because I hated her. That feeling had never lived in me. Not even in the worst years, but because some wounds harden into shape. And once they do, you can't crawl back inside the old skin. You can only step around it, acknowledge it, and walk forward. I sat with the letter for a long time, held it in my lap like something breakable. I didn't read it again. I didn't need to. The words were already tucked in some quiet shelf inside me. That night, I dreamed of her as a little girl. She was standing in a field of tall grass, waving at me with both arms. Her voice carried through the wind, high, bright, unhurt. I couldn't hear what she was saying. I just saw her mouth moving. And then she turned and ran, not away from me, but toward something I couldn't see. I didn't follow. I woke up with a wet face and a calm chest. I burned the letter the next day, not as a rejection, but as a choice. I tore it into thin strips and placed it in the ceramic bowl I'd bought at the thrift shop. Struck a match. Watched it curl and flake. The smoke rose and disappeared before the first light touched the windowsill. I whispered, "Thank you." That was enough. I didn't block her number. I didn't send anything back. But I made it clear with silence, with time, with the steadiness of my absence that I would not return. And then the messages started, not from her, from others, her husband, her cousin, even one of the in-laws, who used to nod at me across the room like I was furniture. They each had their version. She's heartbroken. She didn't mean it. Families fight. You've made your point, now come home. Home. That word felt heavy, foreign, a place that had closed behind me like a book too painful to reread. I didn't answer them. Then came the public part. She posted something on social media. I don't know what it said. I wasn't there too. Read it. But a friend from the old town forwarded it to me in an email with no subject line. A long paragraph about grief, about feeling abandoned, about a mother who had always been complicated, about learning to set boundaries, about healing, about forgiveness, about hoping for return. That were hearts in the comments. Hugs. You're so strong. Praying for peace. I didn't feel anger. I felt distance, like watching weather form over someone else's house. I didn't belong to that version of me anymore. It's the difficult mother, the one who left without warning, the one who hadn't tried. Let her keep the story if she needs it. I knew the truth. I had records, I had receipts. I had pages of small, loyal love stitched through every part of my life. A cake baked, a fever watched, 1,000 unspoken things, done quietly so she could keep becoming. And when she asked me to be quiet, I had honored that too. She just didn't think I would leave with my silence. Now she knows. Let them panic. Let them spin. I don't need them to understand. I am not building a case. I am building a life. And this time, no one gets to call it anything but mine. I never imagined peace would be small. I used to think it would arrive like something cinematic. A breakthrough, a confrontation, a wave of clarity that cracked the sky open. I waited years for that kind of peace. It never came. What came instead were quieter things, a steady chair, a window that fogged in the mornings, the sound of my own breath not caught between someone else's expectations. In this house, I am not impressive. I am not needed. I am simply here, and that is enough. I've found a rhythm, the kind you don't notice until it becomes part of your bones. Mornings begin with tea, not coffee, too jittery now. It's black tea with a little milk. I read one chapter of a book. I sit by the window and let the sun land where it wants. I listen to the sounds of a world that doesn't expect me to perform. There's a market every Tuesday in the square. I walk there with a canvas bag over my shoulder and pick out apples one by one, pressing my thumb gently into their skins. Number 1 rushes. The man who sells honey always gives me the smallest jar, says it suits me, sweet but not loud. I don't correct him. I just smile. There's a boy who plays violin on the corner. Skinny elbows, crooked nose. He's terrible, but committed. I drop a coin into his case every week. I tell him he's getting better. I think that might be true at the library. River has started putting aside books he thinks I might like. Sometimes they're way off sci-fi with robots. Memoirs from athletes I've never heard of, but I read them anyway. It's not about the subject. It's about the gesture. The quiet act of being seen by someone with no stake in who I used to be. That's what I'm learning, to be known without history. Most of the people here don't know my last name. They don't know what I gave up or who I gave it up for. They don't know about the house with the echoing hallway, or the tea gone cold on a kitchen counter I scrubbed for 20 years. They don't know about the safe or the letter or the line she drew in front of everyone when she told me to stay quiet. They just know me as the woman who walks at the same hour each morning, who buys bruised pears and leaves notes tucked into the return slots of books she's finished. Little reviews in pencil. This one broke my heart. This one made me feel like a person again. No one asks for more than I offer. And I give what I can in small, steady ways. Last week, the neighbor's child brought me a drawing, stick figure, with gray hair and yellow shoes. She said it was me. I told her I loved the colors. She asked if I wanted to come to her birthday party next month. I said yes. After she left, I stood at the door for a long time. Not because I was sad, because I wasn't. That was new. There's a woman I've started sitting beside at the bakery. Her name is June. She's somewhere between 60 and 70, but doesn't count. She used to teach, she said. Or maybe she still does, somewhere in her head. She talks with her hands, like punctuation lives in her fingers. I like the way she says my name, not with history, but curiosity. Like she's still learning who I am. We don't talk about our families. That's the unspoken agreement. We talk about the price of eggs. and how the baker always forgets to put enough sugar in the lemon tarts, and how the morning fog seems heavier than it used to be. She asks what I'm painting. I ask what she's reading. We share the table and the silence. Sometimes the silence says more than any story could. One afternoon, she brought me a scarf. Said it was too bright for her. It was orange, the color of late pumpkins and early sunsets. I wore it the next day. She smiled and said, "Now the wind has to find someone else." That night, I wrote another letter. Not to my daughter. I had already said everything I needed to by leaving. This one was for myself. It wasn't long. Just a list, really, of things I'd reclaimed. My voice, my name, my mornings, my space, my peace, my ability to walk away, my right to say no. My right not to explain. I folded the page and placed it under my pillow. Sometimes I take it out and run my fingers along the creases. Proof that not everything has to be shouted to be real. Sometimes I think about her, my daughter. I wonder how she's filling the silence I left behind. She walks into the guest room and expects me to be there. She opens a cabinet and finds a mug I forgot. If she still tells people I just needed space. Or if she's learned the word gone, maybe she reads to her daughter at night and hears my voice in the cadence. Maybe not. It doesn't matter now. There's a bird that comes to my windowsill every morning, small, brown, unsure of itself. I don't know what kind it is. I don't name it. I just leave out breadcrumbs, watch it pick them up one by one, and fly off again. That's how I feel most days. Not healed, but fed. Free, flying, low and quiet, and still moving forward. It was late spring when I saw her again. I was sitting on the bench near the bakery, the one tucked beneath the willow tree that leans too far to the left. I had a half-finished sketch in my lap, a simple pencil study of the street, and a tart I was saving for after. The air smelled of flour and warming earth. Somewhere nearby, someone was hanging laundry. Could hear the soft snap of cloth. In the breeze, she stepped out of a cab like she didn't quite trust the ground. Wore a navy coat, too warm for the weather, and her hair was pulled back in that tight, nervous way I remembered from the weeks after she gave birth. She looked thinner, paler. There was a tremble in the way she scanned the street, as if afraid I'd see her before she was ready to be seen. But I already had. I stayed seated. She didn't notice me at first. Walked past the market stall. Glanced at the town bulletin board. Then she turned. Our eyes met. And just like that, time did the thing it always does. Collapsed in on itself. She was my baby again. My girl. My stranger. My wound. My witness. All of it at once. She didn't smile. Neither did I, but she came toward me slow, like a tide unsure of the shore. I didn't stand. I didn't offer my arms. I just moved my sketchbook aside and waited. She stopped a few feet away. "Hi," she said, her voice barely above breath. I nodded. "Hello, I found the house," she said, looking past me at the bakery window, her reflection small and uncertain in the glass. I wasn't sure I would. I said nothing. "I know you don't want to talk," she added quickly. I needed to see you. I needed to know you were okay." I studied her, the hollowness under her eyes, the way her hands kept twisting the strap of her bag. This wasn't the version of her I remembered. It wasn't the cold one. It wasn't the cruel one. It was the one who'd once sobbed into my coat because she had lost a tooth and thought her body was falling apart. You came along. "Way," I said softly. She nodded. Yeah, I did." I looked back at my sketch. Traced the edge of a storefront with my fingertip. "Why now?" She hesitated. "I thought you'd call eventually. And when you didn't, I kept waiting, hoping. Then I realized you weren't coming back." "I wasn't." "I know," she said. "I do now." Silence settled between us, not angry, not sharp, just honest. "Do you hate me?" she asked, her voice cracking slightly no. Her eyes filled, sudden and wide. She sat down beside me, slowly, like she was afraid the bench might not hold her. We didn't touch. "I brought something," she said, reaching into her bag. I almost didn't. I wasn't sure if it would matter. She pulled out a small envelope. It between both hands like it weighed more than paper should. It's a letter. From her. From my daughter. I didn't take it. She wrote it for you, she said, with help. I didn't make her. It's just, she misses you. I believe that, please. She whispered. If you don't take me back, I understand. But let her know you're still real. I looked at the envelope. Pale blue. My name in blocky, uneven letters. She loves you, Mom. I know I made a mess of everything. I know I let things happen. I can't undo, but I'm not asking you to come back. I'm just asking you to stay gone gently. I closed my eyes, let the words settle. She doesn't need to carry my grief, I said. She won't. She just wants to remember you with joy. I finally reached for the letter, held it in my lap like something tender. I didn't open it. Will you tell? Her eye right back. She nodded. I will. We sat like that a while longer. The wind moved through the willow tree above us. A child cried out across the street, then laughed. The world didn't pause for us. It never had. But somehow, that made it easier. When she finally stood, she didn't ask to come inside. She didn't ask for anything. Thank you for letting me. Say this, she said. I didn't answer. She took a few steps, then turned. Do you want me to keep writing? She asked. Letters, no pressure, just updates. Stories, not for guilt. Just for the connection, maybe, I said. She smiled barely, then walked away. I didn't watch the cab leave. I sat there with the letter in my hand, the paper warming beneath my palm. I didn't open it right away. I finished my sketch, ate the tart, let the afternoon fold itself around me like a blanket that knew how I liked to be held. When I got home, I placed the envelope on the table. I stared at it while the kettle boiled, and then I wrote back, Dear one, I'm still here. I've just learned how to be quiet without vanishing. Love your grandmother. I slipped it into an envelope. No return address, just her name. It's just a seed. Something planted dot. Then I walked to the post office and let the wind carry the rest. I still don't keep clocks in every room. There's one above the stove, a small round one that ticks too loudly in the mornings, especially when the sun hasn't fully risen and the kettle hasn't whistled yet. But the rest of the house is quiet about time. I like it that way. I don't need to know the hour to know when the light changes, or when the air softens enough to open the window. The past few weeks have folded gently. The letter from my granddaughter rests in a drawer beside the tea, and my reply is somewhere. Out there now, on a truck, in a bag, maybe already in her hands. I don't know what she'll do with it. I don't need to. I sent it like you send a candle across the water, not expecting it to return, just hoping it stays lit long enough to be seen. I've started sleeping with the window cracked open, even on cold nights. There's something honest about letting the wind in. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't tiptoe. It moves through the room like it belongs there. Some mornings, I wake to the smell of earth and wood smoke. The trees sway gently outside, and the birds begin before I'm even fully conscious. I lie still and let them speak, most days. I walk the long loop behind the town square through the orchard, past the low fence that someone painted sky blue a few years ago. It's chipping now. I run my hand along it every time. The flaking paint reminds me of something I can't quite name. Maybe resilience. Maybe erosion. Maybe the way some things stay even as they fall apart. Last week, I took a bus to the next town over. Bought a small camera at the secondhand shop. Nothing digital, just film. I wanted something that didn't let me delete what I didn't like. I've begun taking one photo a day. It's just one. Whatever catches my eye, a bird mid-flight. The corner of a leaf pressed against the sidewalk. A woman holding her son's hand as he tries to hop every crack in the pavement. I haven't developed any of them yet. That's not the point. The point is the noticing. I have a box now, under the bed. Inside are things that matter in a quiet way. A feather, stone-shaped like a heart. The napkin June slipped me with a Pie recipe scribbled in the margins. A shell I found near the edge of the woods, and the deed folded neatly. Final. My name alone. No need for signatures or witnesses now. Just ink and intent. She hasn't written again. Not since the bakery. Not since I said maybe. I think she understood what that meant. Not a door opening, but not a door slammed shut either. A threshold I'm willing to approach, maybe even stand near, but not cross. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Some things break quietly. They don't shatter, they just stop holding. You run your hand over them and realize they no longer bear weight. That was us. No explosion. Slow undoing. I've stopped waiting for the grief to leave entirely. It has its own rhythm now. Doesn't thrash anymore. It sits beside me when I drink my tea, when I peel apples, when I walk past the bench where she first found me. It doesn't demand, it just is. Like breath. It's like shadow. There's peace in that. Last Sunday, the neighbor's daughter brought me a flower pressed in a book. She didn't say why. She just handed it to me like it was obvious. I asked her what the flower was called. She said it didn't matter. It was just something soft and brave. I tucked it into the back of my sketchbook. Later, I painted it with a single stroke. No detail. Just the gesture of it. That's what most of my days feel like now. Not full paintings, but gestures. A warm dish, a letter unwritten, story not told aloud but remembered. I used to think I needed to record everything. Every wrong, every slight, every tiny moment that proved I'd tried. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't need a courtroom in my head. I need a quiet room and a page and the choice to write or not. Today, I lit a candle. It wasn't for anyone. Not a birthday, not a memory. It's just light for the sake of it. I let it burn for hours. The scent. Something faint. Something herbal drifted into the corners of the house like it belonged there. I sat beside it and wrote a letter to no one. It said, I am not bitter. I am not broken. I am not waiting, it said. I am here. Still. And that is not small. I folded it and placed it in the same box under the bed with the deed. With the shell, with the feather. I don't know who will find it. I don't think it matters. Some things we keep not because they'll be read, but because writing them lets us breathe. I keep a jar of honey on the shelf now, the kind a man at the market calls sunlight in a bottle. I stir it into my tea on days when the world feels far away. It reminds me that sweetness can come from labor, from time. From bees that keep working even when no one's watching. That's what this is. A life rebuilt not with noise, not with declarations, but with tiny intentional sweetness. There's a line I remember from a book I once read. Something about survival being less about grand moments and more about keeping a chair warm. I think of that when I sit by the window and drink tea that's just the right temperature. I think of that when I answer the door for no one. When I rest in the afternoon sunlight and let myself be no one's mother, no one's mistake, no one's silence. Just mine. This house holds only what I choose to carry. And this time, I decide who gets to call me anything else.